digital and tech throughout has been a real key theme for me, and something I'm really passionate about. And I think the defence and security purpose is the thing that wakes me up in the morning, and gets me really excited. My role at the moment is commercial director. In other organisations in private sector, you call it chief procurement officer. So it's all about procuring the digital and tech that we want for tomorrow, today. So I've got a spend of about £4.7 billion per annum, and a lovely team of about 300 people that help go and do that. And we buy digital and tech for the whole of defence, and also for our security colleagues as well. And we do that across the domains of the air, land, sea, space, and also cyber. And it's quite an exciting place to be, because actually digital and tech is a really core asset that we have, but in particular it sits within every single platform, every single ship, submarine, tank that you have now. So it's a really fundamental part of how we do war fighting and how we will be successful against our adversaries both now and in the future. So I have a little 6-year-old, and she's very wonderful, and she's brilliant at keeping me present and very grounded as well, when lots of things are going on in the world and doing the job. But she's one of the key things that inspires me daily. So you wake up, see her little face in the morning, and actually reminds you why you do what you do, why you want to be getting up, and actually particularly why we do what we do for the next generation as well, both within the day job but also in promoting females into the sector. And she can do whatever job she fancies. I think she wants to either be a teacher or a doctor at the moment, so we've got the resultant Barbies that go with that.
Welcome to this week's episode of Akoni Tech Talks. We're joined today by Victoria Cope, the Commercial Director of Defence Digital. Thank you so much for joining us, Victoria.
Real pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
And in true Akoni Tech Talk style, we start things off straight from the beginning. So you have a really impressive background in defence and security, spanning over 2 decades. I'd love to know what first sort of inspired you to pursue a career in these fields and how your journey's kind of evolved.
So, as in true style of careers never running in straight lines, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a pilot, predominantly an Air Force pilot, but unfortunately my eyesight's not quite good enough. But I thought about really being an airline pilot at the time. So, but you look at it and you think, okay, I am a lady. There is a propensity that I might want to have children at some point, which actually I varied on throughout my career, but I do have enough family now. But I thought, I better get some engineering degree under my belt to help me so that I can be a pilot, and then when the day comes I can also do engineering. So I did an engineering degree at Loughborough University, which I loved, and actually realised I loved it more than my flying. So I ended up taking a year in industry and doing some work while I was at university as well with Airbus helicopters, as it is now, starting out as a stressman and an avionics engineer, and doing designs on all sorts of things like police helicopters and utilities companies helicopters and all sorts of things like that. So I started out with that engineering background, and I use that throughout my career, and I still use it to date, even though I'm in commercial now. And I think one of the things that really excited me was that there's such a broad variety of things that you can do with engineering degrees, and you can take them in a whole host of directions and use them throughout your career in different areas as you move forward. But it really provides you, for defence security and digital and tech in general, a really good bit of gravitas that goes with it as well. So I use that engineering career to do things what they call operational analysis. So it's looking at different situations and problem solving. So how can you apply sort of a structured systems thinking approach to actually the situations in front of us? And most of these looked at how would you have bought it differently if you'd started out at the beginning. So that kind of led me into my procurement and commercial career. And I've done commercial as in sort of sell side, so doing bids to customers to help them improve the work they were doing. I've also done procurement in the sense of how do you then enact those contracts in your supply chain. So I've had 2 hats on kind of throughout my career, but digital and tech throughout has been a real key theme for me, and something I'm really passionate about. And I think the defence and security purpose is the thing that wakes me up in the morning and gets me really excited. So if you look back at my original folks that I went to university with, people went into all different sort of things. They went into military, they went into banking, they went into engineering, and a lot of them went into Formula One as well. And all really, really exciting, but it does allow you to have that very different path forward. And I think I'm really lucky that I've had a career that's kind of spanned different areas of defence and moved around, both from the private sector for about sort of 20 years in the private sector, and now the last 3 years into the public sector as well, which has the purpose that you would find in defence and security and tech outside, but also at scale, and a bit closer to the policy decisions that are being made as well, which really helps to make an impact at scale in the economy as well.
That's so interesting. And the way you said you're some of the things you'd learned originally, you're still utilizing those skills within your current role as well. Can you share a bit more about your responsibilities or even your goals within your current role?
Absolutely. So my role at the moment is commercial director. In other organisations in private sector, you call it chief procurement officer. So it's all about procuring the digital and tech that we want for tomorrow, today. So I've got a spend of about £4.7 billion per annum, and a lovely team of about 300 people that help go and do that. And we buy digital and tech for the whole of defence, and also for our security colleagues as well. And we do that across the domains of the air, land, sea, space, and also cyber. And it's quite an exciting place to be, because actually, digital and tech is a really core asset that we have. But in particular, it sits within every single platform, every single ship, submarine, tank that you have now. So it's a really fundamental part of how we do war fighting and how we will be successful against our adversaries, both now and the future.
Amazing. And you kind of touched on as well the fact that your role hasn't sort of gone in a linear line. Things have changed, or your views on things have changed. But what would you say are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned in your career, and how have they kind of influenced your leadership style today?
So I think some of the biggest lessons learned are leadership ones, and in particular, and I've had the pleasure of working with some really exceptional leaders in my time at all points of my career, and I've learned something from all of them, and also from the sort of experiences I've had of applying these sort of lessons as well. And I think particularly the first one would be about push yourself out of your comfort zone. If you are not feeling a little bit uneasy about what you're doing, and there's something new, then you're not learning. And actually, it's really important to be doing that all the time. And I think they say, isn't it, you make diamonds when situations are under pressure. I fully believe in that. So push yourself out of your comfort zone at all times, I think is really important. And that's how you can then achieve your full potential. Mm-hmm. I think the other side of it is around your softer skills as well, in particular around how do you work with stakeholders, and in any job you do, whether it's a commercial job, an engineering job, a tech job, we will have to employ change at some point as well, and working with stakeholders is a really important part of it. So actually having good stakeholder management skills, engaging with people, being able to bring them on the journey with you, and also kind of expanding your network throughout that period as well, so you can learn from others in order to help deliver your job, but also deliver that change, is another really important one. Mm-hmm. I think the other one is also about asking for what you want. So there are a lot of great organisations out there who have fantastic opportunities in front of you. And if you're really intentional with asking for what you need, actually you'll be successful. And I always used to be thinking about this when I was younger, of going, should I really be doing this? My dad was like, no, ask for it. The worst they can say is no. But actually, I've asked for a lot of opportunities. Ones that, if you looked at the stage of the career I was in, there was actually quite big jumps. And to date, they haven't actually, touch wood, nobody said no to me yet. So actually, people will back you to move forward, because one, it helps you, it helps them, and it helps the organisation deliver their outcomes as well. So that's been a really key thing for me, is about how do you ensure you're intentional about what you're doing and ask for what you need as well.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's important for individuals to, employ and empower change and innovate, but also as organizations. I mean, you touched on the fact that you're working for the security of tomorrow, today. So, and digital transformation is a critical topic across these industries, especially in defense. But what do you see as the most pressing digital priority for the defense sector today?
So it's got to be cyber. As you're probably aware from the market, it's a really challenging sphere, and we've got to get the basics right first. So, as one of my colleagues, who's the director for cyber defence for MOD, would say, patch, patch, patch. So when you've got your pop-ups coming up, and we all, even our own home computers, go, oh, it's really annoying, get rid of it. Actually, it's the fundamentals that apply. And working in government, we have a thing called Cyber Essentials, which helps everybody as an organisation to be able to understand what they should be doing, and our suppliers have a real critical baseline of doing that. But cyber is fundamental, because we might have a war situation in other continents across the globe at the moment, but actually the cyber war is one that's here now, and it's really important to be aware and be cyber secure in how you operate. But in particular, noting that that those actors, they call them, which are people who are trying to attack from a cyber perspective, are really there toe to toe with us at all times, trying to find some way to get in, and then also sometimes to sit dormant until the opportunity arises for them to do something that will make an impact. So really, really important. And we just launched a toolkit as well to help organisations and individuals who need to be looking at the cyber security side of things, and ensuring that whether you are a manufacturer of a large platform or a digital and tech piece, or whether you're a furniture manufacturer or a one-man band that wants to get involved with consultancy in government, that you have the right tools to ensure that you're cyber secure.
Absolutely. And when it comes to your role within the space as well, we've seen you've been recognised as being on the Inspiring Women list as well by World Commerce and Contracting. You won the We Are the City's Top 100 Women Award in 2019. What does it mean to get this kind of recognition, and how does it specifically inspire your work in supporting women within the field that you work in?
So I think firstly, the recognition means a huge amount, and you always do these, you work and you do your job without expectation, but it's really, really nice, and I'm real honoured to be nominated and awarded some of these awards, so I'm very lucky. I think the key thing for me is about why I do what I do with some of the wider STEM and other protected characteristic work on diversity and inclusion. Is, for me, it's about making a difference to other people and helping them achieve their full potential. And it's really great to be able to have an opportunity to give back and use my skills and experience to help others. And I really relish that opportunity. But it's absolutely fantastic to have those awards. But I think, the real piece is around why we do what we do, which is all about how can we make sure that the sector is fit for the future, and that we have a really thriving and diverse workforce and diversity of thought that helps us actually achieve those outcomes that we need as well.
Definitely. And speaking of diversity, we still see that women remain underrepresented in defence and tech leadership roles. From your perspective, what are the key barriers, and how can the industry address them effectively?
So I think we're in a growth era. We've come a long way, and actually I'm really lucky, and we reflected actually at one of the big trade shows last year that my SLT that I sit in for defence in digital in particular has 6 women and 5 men, so we actually outnumber the chaps, and actually we're really quite strong women as well, so there might be a theme of how our boss Charlie Forte, CIO, recruits, but I think if you look more broadly, that doesn't necessarily, as you said, it doesn't reflect the wider sector at the moment. We're just really lucky in the position we're in now, and I think some of those barriers in particular are around I think one is a piece on bias. I have to say, I always say, unconscious bias is a bit of an excuse when it comes down to it. We should be working with our colleagues, respecting and treating everybody in a fair and equivalent fashion, regardless of the characteristics to which they identify, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's creed, or any of the other particular areas. But I think the barriers in particular, if you look for those females who wish to have a family, it still remains really challenging to be able to have the right time, I think is the phrase, to have a family, and it's also about making sure we have those colleagues that then return to work and progress and don't actually take a step back, is really, really fundamental. And I was lucky enough to have maternity mentoring actually by a CEO of an aerospace company while I was on maternity leave myself, which allowed me to come back and actually get promoted, which is fantastic. But it's not the case for everybody, and it's a really important piece to sort of break the bias on you're having a family, therefore therefore you want to take a step back. That's not always the case. But actually, how do you support colleagues in the workplace? And that includes shared parental leave to allow females who want to progress their careers to actually be able to do that as well and share that load more broadly. I think the other side is around attraction in the first place to the sector. So in particular, defence and security, it's a very male-dominated environment, has traditionally been, and say we are getting better. But actually, it's about how do you link with the values of those with different diversity of thought that you want to get into the sector in particular, and the practices by which you have to say retain them, progress them, and then also is the key piece around if you can't be what you can't see, and having more senior female leaders at board level and throughout the ranks as you move up is really important to be able to colleagues, and including me at the time as well, feel that you have an opportunity, and also mentors and people you can learn from to understand how they achieve that as well. So yeah, it's really fundamental that we continually look at the barriers, but also particularly keep asking the question of those who come against barriers as to what they are, because as we progress on that journey, those barriers will continue to change. But it's really important that we support colleagues and give them the right tools and the confidence to progress in the workplace as well.
As you say, you've touched on arming women with the right tools and skill set and confidence, whether that's through mentorship or advice. What advice would you offer young women or professionals who are aspiring to work within a role within defence, tech, or commercial leadership?
So I think a few key things. So one is invest in yourself and your time, and be intentional with what you do. Whatever you do towards supporting your development, make it count. I think the other thing is, as you said, mentorship, getting a sponsor and asking for a sponsor. And I've always thought this is incredibly, incredibly uncomfortable to go, will you sponsor me? And proactively go out and say, can make connections and make that support for progression. But actually, I've got one of the best sponsors who was a mentor of mine before I joined government, and now is also continues to be a sponsor for me. Really, really lucky, fantastic individual, but you need to ask for it. It's and be really clear on what you need. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Be authentic at all times. Be yourself. Be the person you are at home and the person you are at work. It actually goes a really long way, the authenticity. And actually, you put a lot of energy into trying to be something different if you are not your authentic self at all times. So be kind to yourself. People want to work with you and work for you because of who you are. So be authentic at all times. I think a key piece is around drive and not giving up. So as we said, there can be quite considerable amount of barriers as you move through a career, regardless of gender. Then actually it's about how do you approach those barriers and how can you learn from them, and being really resilient and not giving up on what you want. So keep going. You're great and you got to where you are already by being fantastic and the strengths that you have. So don't forget those, keep those, but be resilient and keep heading for what you want. Mm-hmm. I think a learning and development is a learning journey. So you're learning as you go through, and I think a key point is reflecting as well. So it's really easy for us to progress really quickly, be moving through, be focusing on the job, but actually a key point is about taking some time, and I do about half an hour every week, is sit back and reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, what am I really proud of, and what am I going to take forward next week, and what might I put in the bin and forget about, and we'll move on when Monday morning comes. But it's quite a nice practice to actually ensure that you can kind of tweak, nuance, and check and balance what you're doing, particularly from a soft skill side as you move forward. But I think there's a lot you can put in your kind of toolkit, in your toolbox as you kind of go through your career, but they probably be my top tips.
And looking forward, what are some of the goals or aspirations you have within your career and your professional journey?
So for me, it's all about making an impact at scale. I'm very lucky to have quite a wide reach across defence. I'm also the senior responsible officer for space in commercial across government as well, which I really enjoy given my background. But I think, for me, what the future looks like is I would like to gain one of the Director General positions and be Director General Commercial for defence is the aim of the game. My boss knows that, so it's okay. I did tell him that before I accepted the role. So that's my key aspiration as I move forward. So I I am a big defence and security lady, and so it is the thing that makes me get up in the morning. But it's about how can we make a bigger impact at scale, make that difference across defence and security. And then eventually one day I will want to do a portfolio career when I get more near the retirement age, a little while off yet, but I'll probably do that, and helping again use my background and experience to advise others on boards, which I do, some of which I do in my personal time now. But that's kind of the aspirations to keep giving back and keep contributing throughout my career.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And in a field that's constantly evolving, what else keeps you inspired and motivated each day to continue pushing through those boundaries and fostering change?
So I think there's a couple of things, one of which is actually my daughter. So I have a little 6-year-old, and she's very wonderful. And she's brilliant at keeping me present and very grounded as well, when lots of things are going on in the world and doing the job. But she's one of the key things that inspires me daily. So you wake up, see her little face in the morning, and actually reminds you why you do what you do, why you want to be getting up, and actually particularly why we do what we do for the next generation as well, both within the day job but also in promoting females into the sector. And she can do whatever job she fancies. I think she wants to either be a teacher or a doctor at the moment, so we've got the resultant Barbies that go with that. Yeah, she's one of the things that inspires me daily. I think the other side of it is actually my team. I've got a brilliant team, and seeing them succeed are kind of my yes moments now as well. They're a key reason I do what I do, and they're really kicking it out of the park at the moment. I have to say, it's fantastic to see, and it's really nice to be able to celebrate their successes as well in what they've achieved.
We move on to the trending in tech round now. So Sky News reported that a recent study by Web Summit revealed almost half of women in tech feel pressured to choose between family and career, which we kind of touched on earlier as well. And it's a growing trend compared to last year, with half of the surveyed women reporting experiences of sexism. 75% said they feel they need to work harder than men to prove themselves. Persistent issues such as imposter syndrome, a lack of childcare support, all these sorts of things create barriers for women, not only in tech but other fields too. Despite these challenges, there is hope, as 3/4 of respondents feel empowered to pursue leadership, and most see female representation in senior management at their companies. But given the persistent challenges highlighted in the report, what specific actions do you think companies and the industry as a whole should take to better support women in their professional and personal aspirations?
So I think the first thing is we need to be talking about this more. So it's really good. The Sky and wider organisations are really shining a light on it. The more we talk about it, we understand people's experiences, the more we can do something about it. And I always think, as they say, a problem shared is a problem halved. But we've really got to be discussing these and be over about doing that. I think one is about increasing the inclusivity in the environments and the support that's available to colleagues. I think we need to ensure that career progression is on a level playing field, and that having a family does not affect that. And I always say it's not about the time you've been enrolled, but what you did while you were there. So it's about that value add, not necessarily taking a break for a year to have parental leave is really not a big chunk of time in the expanse that is individuals' careers. So it shouldn't prejudice people's careers whatsoever. Work-life balance is really important. I actually work a 9 and 10 compressed working pattern. It's fantastic on every other Friday to get a bit of time back. But having that and having that ability to do that at all levels is really, really fundamental to ensure that we actually allow people to have integrated lives with their families as well, and to be able to succeed in both parts of their lives as well. Gender pay gap is a big thing still, and interesting in a procurement lens as well. SIPs have come out with a review at them recently, which was showing a 20% less pay for all levels for females in the sector. So again, we have to be really strong with ourselves and about how we negotiate, know our own value, and ask for what we want and what we need and what we're worth. And I think that's a really important thing, but organisations need to respect us for that as well. well. And again, unfortunately, men are better at negotiating for their own pay. Actually, women are actually better at negotiating in a workplace situation, so contracts and things like that. So really, really interesting reflection. But a really important one that we ask what we need, but also organisations rise to that. And I think in particular, it's about understanding the motivations, as mentioned earlier, about how we attract, retain, and progress females in the sector, and really to keep a view on the journey as we move through that. And I think if you look back at my early career, the dynamic was very, very different. I never used to wear my hair down. I used to wear it in a ponytail. I used to get different comments back then. It's a different world now. It's not about that. I can wear and dress and look and be who I am, rather than having to be something quite different, because at the time you needed to fit in. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but really important that we treat everybody with equal equality, respect, and equity of opportunity as well.
Absolutely. It's been so interesting to hear bits of your story and kind of your personal insights. And for the final round, this is called This or That. So we're going to delve into your personal picks of which is your preferred option. So iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
And Spotify or Apple?
Apple.
Netflix or cinema?
Netflix. I've got a child who haven't go to the cinema for how many years now?
And laptops or tablets?
A tablet.
And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
ChatGPT.
And video call or voice notes?
Video call. Gotta love see somebody's face rather than just hearing their lovely voice. So.
Absolutely. And finally, if you could bring back one original piece of tech that's now evolved or it's since ceased to exist, what would it be and why?
So it's a really hard question, and I'm going to pick something really uncool. I really like my cassette player back in the day, and I think it's probably because it brings back memories of being in the car with my parents on holidays and listening to stuff. Like, I think it was Now 25 or something, and rewinding it and then overplaying the song you like so much that it kind of went a bit strange and slurry because you stretched the tape. But I think it's kind of, it's a nostalgia moment. But I kind of miss my tape recorder. But my dad found mine the other day, actually. Sadly, it doesn't work anymore, but yeah, if you could bring that back for just one day, that would be lovely.
Oh, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much for having me.